speaker tonight is the woman of the moment with a manifesto for women to share their experiences and make a difference. So here to officially launch and talk about QPOP, a book of one's own, please show your appreciation for a publisher, author, mentor, speaker and all-round lovely lady, Lucy.
Thank you very much, everyone. First, the thank yous. I've got lots of thank yous. First, thank you to all of you for coming here tonight. It's just such a buzz to have you all here. We've got the Rethink team. We've got my family, my grandson somewhere. we've got my nephews and nieces. We've got Rethink Press authors, we've got other authors, and just, all the people who contributed to this book. And I'm so grateful for you all for coming and for supporting the book and all its... Thank you, Raina. And all it stands for. So it all started with the Business Book Awards, and I also want to do some thanks here because I founded the Business Book Awards in 2017 with the ThinkFest team, who have been absolutely amazing. So I want to thank Kasim, and Brad and Edwin. Yeah, thanks. It's just been amazing. It could have been a horrible disaster, but actually it's just been brilliant because they are the best events organisers and awards organisers ever. So we had our first Business Book Awards, were awarded last year, and it was fantastic. As Nadine said, we had a 50-50 gender split of judges. The head judge, Alison Jones, who sadly can't be here tonight, and I, obviously, women. We went through what we thought was a really clear judging process, really equitable, really fair. And we got 11 fantastic winners, excellent books, lovely authors, really, really knowledgeable on their subject. But the fact is they were all men. And there was nothing I could do about it at the time. They all thoroughly deserved their awards, and I really don't want to cast any aspersions on them at all. But I thought, no, look, something is wrong here. This can't be right. So I thought, okay, I need to dig back, and I can't just let this lie. I need to see what's happened. So I looked back. We had 150 entries to the first Business Book Awards. A third were by women authors. Slightly fewer than a third made it through to the shortlists. And obviously none made it through to actual winners. So I looked at our Rethink Press list then. I'd literally never thought about this before. I'd assumed that we probably published 50-50 women and men. But no, once again, the split was we have published a third of women, 2/3 books authored by men. So I thought I need to do some more work on this. Why is this happening? So I asked a lot of women that I knew whether they would take part in a survey and do some interviews with me. So I got 50, I actually ended up with exactly 50 women authors who contributed to my survey and interviews. And I really want to thank all of them as well. You have been such an amazingly... So for all of you who contributed, who are here tonight, I really, really thank you. You were so honest and so clear about the questions I asked and what you thought. I mean, you had all obviously written and published your book, but you were very honest about what had taken the time, held you back, worried you, given you anxiety about actually doing it, and why you thought other women were not doing it potentially. But you also had wonderful tips for other women, and you were so enthusiastic about wanting to get other women to do this because it had done so much for you. So that's what is actually in the book. The book is structured on why women don't write their business books, or why fewer women write their business books, why they should, because the outcomes, the results are fantastic for them, perhaps even more so than for men, and how to do it. So there's a big how-to at the back of the book. That's the largest and third part of it. But I also want to thank Joe and Daniel and Kieran, who are all here tonight, who also contributed to the book. So I wasn't entirely completely sexist about this. I did ask a few men what they thought as well. So thank you all very much too. And to Shah Wasmond, who wrote me a wonderful foreword, who unfortunately isn't here. But so thank you all very much. So I was inspired by Virginia Woolf, who wrote, published her book. She also started her publishing company. I'm not in any way comparing myself to Virginia Woolf, if only. But she did give a lecture literally 90 years ago to this year, where she advocated famously that women needed £50 a year and a room of their own to write, and complained vociferously about why there wasn't enough, she was talking about fiction, but why there were so few books both about and written by women. But, 90 years ago, you'd think things would have changed, but really, in some ways, they have not changed enough. So her A Room of One's Own really inspired me to and actually just kind of the title of A Book of One's Own just kind of dropped into my head one day, and I thought, yes, that's it. That's what I have to do. One of the things that I loved as well is that Virginia Woolf, her first design for her book cover was done by her feminist artist sister, Vanessa Bell. So I don't have a sister, but I have an feminist artist daughter-in-law, Clementine. And Clementine, I can't tell you how much I love the cover you have designed for me. I can't afford to pay you as an artist because you are so wonderfully successful, but I have got something I would like to give you if you're here. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So it's not a first edition, unfortunately, but it is a folio edition of A Room of One's Own. And thank you for my wonderful cover. So next in the thanks, it started with the Business Book Awards, and of course, as ever, books finish with Rethink Press team. So I need to thank Joe, especially my wonderful business partner, but also all the rest of the team who all contributed to the book. Verity, thank you so much for reading it and making it a much better book. Anchor for overseeing everything as ever. Kate for project managing it. Alison for editing it, Elaine, who's not here, for typesetting, Joe for proofing, and everybody else who's contributed, and especially Richard, of course, for living with me while I was writing it. So thank you to my Rethink team. Okay, so now I'm going to say some serious things that, I can't avoid, really. So the fact is that men are the default human being in all sorts of ways. Did you know that medical research is almost exclusively carried out on men? We don't react to some medical stuff in the same way as men, but we're a bit of a nuisance because we do things like have periods and don't have such easy bodies to work on, apparently. All kind of protective kit, equipment, cars, seat belts are all designed for men. Crash test dummies are male-sized. The female ones are just smaller men, and they're only tested in the passenger seat. So truly, the world is more dangerous for us, literally, because we actually get more injured and die more often in car crashes because it doesn't fit. It doesn't work for us. Kids are getting a very skewed view of the world when they play computer games, because most of the avatars, most of the characters they play as are male. There aren't so many female ones, a few, and they are, well, interesting. So did you know that voice recognition software is pitched for male voices? We can't always get ours to work unless we talk much lower, and then sometimes it does work. But the world is made for men still. In business, it's extraordinary that women-led businesses get so much less venture capital, funding of all kinds. They get less contracts. less public sector and corporate contracts. And one thing that really interests me and worries me and makes me furious, just like women's voices aren't heard in apps and recognition, we can deliver exactly the same pitch as a man, and this has been tested for funding, and yet we're not credible. Men are, women aren't. When you get to publishing, if you look at the figures, the research that's been done, women's books overall, books with women's name, recognisably female names on, are priced overall lower than men. Genres that women write in, like romance, are considered much less serious, much less credible and interesting than science fiction that more men write. Most book reviewers are male. There are far more books by men that are actually reviewed publicly. We win fewer prizes, and I'm sorry about the Business Book Awards. We've joined a really eminent group of literary prizes, but you know, we're not the only ones out there, and hopefully, yes, Suzanne? Specialist book category, all women this year, yes, absolutely, no, we have. So I must say, for the Business Book Awards, we've changed the categories, we've changed the judging criteria, just tweaked it this year, and we haven't had many more women entries, but we have had definitely, the criteria has been we will have women winners this year, and we are actually having this year an award for an exceptional book by a woman, which some people thought was kind of, special pleading, that's patronising. No, it's not. This needs to be said, this needs to be done. Women need to be brought forward on this.
And actually, in the leadership category, we had mainly females.
Yeah, exactly. That's brilliant, that leadership and
both men and women judge
exactly.
in exactly the same way. But
Yeah.
They just rose to the top.
Yeah, and that's really so good to hear. So when I did the research, again, the same thing, when you submit a manuscript with a man's name on it, again, it gets more interest from agents and publishers, exactly the same manuscript, than if it's got a woman's name on it. And it's not that long, really, since J.K. Rowling was asked not to use her full name, Joanne Rowling, because boys might not like a book about a boy wizard that was written by a woman. So, the women that I spoke to basically said, overall, there are 6 C's that are really hampering us, both in business and in getting our books out. We lack confidence compared to men. We just don't believe in ourselves. We worry about criticism, and justifiably, we are criticised more than men. We're trolled, and we are held up for judgment far more than men. So we fear the criticism of putting ourselves out there in published form. We also have the problem of cash. Our businesses are not always as large or as cash rich as men's businesses, so it's harder for us to find that time and that money to spend in investing in our books. We also have more caring responsibilities, and we tend to feel that writing our books is a selfish thing to do because it takes us away from our families and the businesses that we run, because we really care about all the people who work with us and for us, our colleagues and clients, and we feel guilty about taking time in what seems like something for ourselves. And we feel that we're not credible with publishers and the outside world. And also, we don't belong to the club. We lack mentors, we lack support networks, and we lack generally that network of people who will tell us how to get on, how to move our stuff forward, how to put ourselves forward and be there behind us. But the ridiculous thing is that actually a book can help with all those things. As Nadine said, it does make you more confident. It does deflect criticism. As Joe said when I interviewed him for this book, women are so much, in general, of course I'm generalising here about everything, but our women authors tend to be much more specific about making sure that everything is right in their book. They want everything tied down. They want references, like Jane's 200 references. While a lot of our male authors just write their book. This is my idea. I think it's great. Here you are. And, you know, I'm not saying it's not. But, you know, that the confidence and the credibility is kind of innate for men much more. So your book can also help as a woman with your cash flow, because it will help your business, it will grow your business, it will go out and get clients for you and speaking gigs, as Jane said, that you can't do on your own. And so therefore it also helps with your caring responsibilities. Ironically, my 2 daughters declined to come tonight because they said it was too boring. but my sons are here, so that's fine. You know, Jane and other authors and Vicky also say how much, you know, it matters for our families to see that we can do that, for our friends and our families and our children, especially our daughters, to see that we are authors, we are out there and we are credible. And it gives us that credibility. You know, you don't have to, women worry about being pushy, about putting themselves out there, but you only have to put your book on the table and say, have you read my book? And it's all done for you. You don't have to say any more, that's enough. And it also helps us to get into the club. There is a club of women authors, of women business people, and we need to make that more effective. We need to work with each other, as you've both said very eloquently, thank you so much, that, you know, we need to be there mentoring other people to come forward. And, you know, it's a tiny, you know, this is not domestic abuse, this is not sexual assault, but in a small way, you know, this is something that I can do in my niche for women. So perhaps one of the most fun bits of writing this book was that as I wrote, I found, I don't want to make this sound like a Pirandello play, but I found some people jumping off the page and turning into archetypes for women who I think are part of all our lives. So the risk assessor, actually, she was inspired by you, Jane. Yes. So we all have an internal risk assessor, but women's risk assessor is very, very much more deliberate than men. You know, we are really worried about doing things. We are definitely more risk averse than men, and reasonably, because life is dangerous for us. The imposter, we do suffer from imposter syndrome. We really don't believe that we are, you know, who am I to do this? And the twin is, you know, someone, we all have a kind of vision of what it would be like if we were men, if we could just walk into that networking room and feel clubbable like other people. But we're also ambushed by our big sister. I'm an eldest daughter, and one of my authors who I interviewed has written The Eldest Daughter Effect. And we are just incredibly, we have to take care of everybody. But actually, I think that women in business do this as well. We are really concerned about that everybody should be looked after, and we feel very indispensable. And we have to let go of that. We really do. I say, not doing very good at that. The angel comes in Virginia Woolf's A Room of My Own, the angel in the house, the one who says, you are not a good woman if you're not looking after your husband and your children, and you're not cooking every night, and you're not, well, and who are you to step forward and say anything? Be a woman, know your place. And then Cinderella is cash poor, too much to do, too much housework, too many children, and finds it really, and especially women who come back to work after maternity leave really find themselves in a hard place like that. But we do have superpowers. And Miss Moneypenny is like the front desk of your room. Kieran will kind of your brain as your kind of conscious thought. But when you team up with the librarian who's back there in the TARDIS of your amazing brain, women particularly are very good at linking those two because we multitask, whatever you think of that particular term. But we think of a million things at the same time. And that's a really good way to actually write your book. And then the mentor. We need to have more mentors, and you can have an internal mentor as well as an external mentor, and you need to mentor yourself through those crises of confidence. And then we can all become the hero, and the hero is someone who can then go back and be a mentor. So I drew some little pictures. My brothers will remember that I used to draw pictures like that when I was a teenager. So I went back to doing those. I really loved drawing those pictures. So I've turned them into a poster, and there are some postcards if anybody's interested in those. No, I have real artists in my family. This is... So that's it, really. Thank you very much for all your support and for being here tonight. And please do your best to help other women to write their books and get published. Thank you.